All right, me. It is the end of March. It's like March 25th. And I have finished reading the physics book by Clifford Pickover. This is probably the book that has taken me the longest to read from cover to cover. Because it is, in a lot of ways, effectively just an encyclopedia written in a more interesting way, right? But it is still within that same format. And so it has taken me, I think I started reading bits of it in November. So November, December, January, February, March. Basically, probably 4 to 5 months to read this. Because as much as I enjoy learning about a lot of different things, and I do still have, a great deal of enjoyment and desire to learn about physics and math and things, right? Because it is so much designed like an encyclopedia, the desire just wasn't there to read. So it'd be, read 5, 6 for a couple days, and then have it just sit on a table for 2 weeks, and then read another 5 or 6 of these. Because in total, it's 250 different entries, right? And they're organized by date. They're organized chronologically. So from the Big Bang to quantum resurrection, right? And then everything in between those two things. Yeah. This book I've also owned for a very long time. I want to say that I got this book for like Christmas in middle school or early high school. And even then, I didn't really read it. I read a few of the entries, because the entries are just one page and they have a corresponding picture that goes along with it. So the book is a lot thicker than it needs to be, right, because of that. But at the same time, it's also just, is what it is, right? So yeah. The book itself and the way it's written, from the very beginning, my question had become who is this for question, right? And I think books that are nonfiction, but that are also about such a wide breadth of topic, become really hard to sell and really hard to write, because because there's not a good answer to this question, right? Because some of the entries are like, you can get with an understanding of, you have a high school level understanding going into it, and this kind of builds on that and then allows you to explore a little bit further, right? But then some of them are really, really, really basic, and like don't actually, and like are more of a history of something rather than a exploration of it, right? So I'm trying to thinking of because it's also just a weird combination of things, right? Because sometimes it is like theories and ideas and concepts that are discovered, that exist, but then some of them are also like the bouncy ball, right? And things like that. And so you have this kind of weird combination of this, but then also there's also there's also some of these entries that are like, what in the world are you talking about, kind of deal, because for the page that's on, half of it is explaining and talking through this one one specific equation, right? But then we get, in the way that an encyclopedia is written, is then, okay, there are things here that we need to then understand, and then we have to go look at other things in order to understand this thing, right? The problem is that because of the way it's structured and because of the goal of it, which is like physics concepts, physics ideas, a lot of these things aren't then in there, and so then it becomes an encyclopedia that requires outside research to have an understanding of. All right, so it's just kind of these weird things of like, who is this written for? Who are we trying to get to read this, right? And the really answer is I really don't know. My assumption is kind of that middle school, high school level. But yeah. For what the book is, right, which is an encyclopedia, there is a good amount of voice in it, which is actually really nice. Because I think that's another thing that causes a lot of difficulty when we talk about getting kids interested and getting people interested and continue to be interested in maths and sciences and things, is that so often we view it as such a cut and dry thing that we don't allow for voice to be used, and we don't allow any expression of an individual within them, right? And I think Clifford Pickover does a pretty good job injecting some of his own voice into things that seem so cut and dry and could just be explained and then just left to it, right? There are certainly some parts where it's like, it's just not interesting, or it is a drag, or it is, whatever. But it is what it is. Yeah. It's also an interesting thing of where, like, because of the fact that I keep referring to it as it's encyclopedic in the way that it's designed, but also it doesn't function like an encyclopedia. Like, because it feels like the way it's structured is that it's meant to be read front to back, which I have done. I didn't enjoy doing it, but that's not how these kind of like reference pieces work, right? And so they just get kind of stuck, and yeah, it was a weird kind of deal. Yeah, but that's the physics book by Clifford Pickover. I added to the shelf.